This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome into episode number 34 of Tiger Talk with Chirco and Company. I am your host, Vito Jerome Geronimo Chirco. I like to say, I don't even know if that's the right translation for it in Italian, but I'll say that is the case. And alongside me, as usual, is my sidekick, my partner in crime, per se, in the pod father, the doc, John Macaroon. John, what's going on today, my man?
Vito, happy Tuesday to you. I really do look forward to meeting with you. We just wrapped up our first Detroit Sports Podcast Network's Facebook Live post. I got a chance to kind of tinker with it. I was wondering why people were able to do it, and I updated the Facebook on my app, on my iPhone, and I wasn't able to do it. And then today I just saw a quick video, and the application is already there, and we just did a quick Facebook Live video. I'm super excited. New avenue of getting you out there. A lot of views already, and now we're here today, episode 34, ready to break down some Detroit Tigers news. And I know you want to give me grief because when I saw the report that Bruce Rondon was sent to AAA, I knew the first person that was going to have to talk to me about it was yourself. Unbelievable story because he was the cornerstone foundation of my bullpen revival plan. Be the setup guy, be the flamethrower, and it just flamed out. He got cursed by the doc. Anytime the doc praises anybody or anytime the doc, which is very rare, shows love to an athlete, they automatically get injured, they tank, or they get sent to the minors. Are you serious right now? Oh, no! Rondon's not with the Tigers right now.
I told you, I was serious the whole entire time that he wouldn't make the ball club out of spring training. I told you he wasn't good enough. His flame-throwing ability, great at all, but his command not there. His ERA was horrible during spring ball, so he wasn't going to make the big league club out of spring. And how many times did I tell you that? I try to reiterate the point left and right, but your affection just skyrocketed, and you never saw the real truth about Bruce Rondon and his flaws. The flaws are there on the wall, but you can't accept it because you love your man way too much, Doc.
Why did he get sent to AAA?
Command, not good. Lack of that. And his effort level, I think they still want to see that produced now somewhere else first, so at the AAA level. And then to produce better results on a consistent basis. He wasn't doing that in spring ball. He was horrible. Had a 5.81 ERA as of last week's episode. So the ERA not there, the command not there, has to be better going forward, has to be more productive on a consistent basis, and has to find that form, get into a groove in AAA first and foremost, and then he can be recalled to the big league ball club. And as we've heard, and as I think we both think, he will make it back to the big league ball club and be maybe even an influential and impactful late inning arm at one point this season. But I think to start off, when he gets back to the big league ball club, he'll be a middle innings arm, and just hopefully he's reliable in that role, Doc.
Okay, so do you think that he'll be back with the club sooner rather than later? I understand the reasoning. At the major league level, you can't just come up and have the personal time to work with all the staff to get better. In the minors, you can look at video. You can work more closely with the pitching coaches hand in hand in order to fix maybe mechanics that are off, or look at video and seeing what are differences when he was successful. So I understand the need for him to go in the minors, but do you think he'll be there for a long period of time?
No, I don't think so, because of the fact that it's been talked about already, and because he was deemed the closer, right? The closer in waiting, the guy that was going to close at one point. Never became that great closer as of yet, but they still, I think, envision him being a late inning arm. So I think he will be up if he's productive at the AAA level, and up sooner than later if that is the case.
Okay. I'm hoping that he does get a chance to really work in the minors, because James McCann in the paper said that he has all the talent in the world. This is a guy that has the stuff. That's what everyone looks at. But if you can't control it, that's even worse. When you have the talent, you have the flame-throwing ability, and we've seen quite a bit of those in terms of relievers here at the Tigers level. And we need a guy that's just going to come in here and take care of business. So if he's in the minors for a long period of time, I would say that he might be starting to be looked at as someone that we can dispose of.
That'd be a huge red flag for his career progression. I think it would mean that, they're going to dispose of him and move on from him completely almost. So not a good thing if that is the case, indeed, Doc.
All right, spanning the Detroit Tigers news, I read a lot of papers, checked Twitter, lots of interesting news and notes. Let's start with this. Brad Ausmus has kind of kept the rotation, has kept the bullpen, has kept the lineups kind of to the, he's kept what he's going to do to start the season kind of under wraps in terms of who's going to make the ball club, who's going to slot where, what each role is going to be. But he was asked about whether Tyler Collins was going to make this ball club, and he was kind of keeping his cards close to the vest, but he did say that he's making a case to be on the opening day roster. So your thoughts, Tyler Collins, is he here? Do you think he'll be productive to start the season for the Tigers? Because that schedule, when you look at it, we'll talk about it later on in the podcast, that schedule, super tough.
Well, you know what? Moya was already optioned at AAA, so he's not going to be that fourth outfielder candidate. He's not going to come up with a big league ball club as the fourth outfielder, and really shouldn't be at this point. So Collins, it leaves the door open for him because Maben's hurt, will be on the shelf to start the season, as in on the disabled list. So I think rightfully so, he should be on the Major League roster to start the year after his productive campaign last season when he was a good fourth outfielder. Had to start here and there, obviously, after Cespedes was dealt. And he proved himself. He proved himself to be a valuable asset as a fourth outfielder. So why can't he be that again in 2016? He's young enough, so why not give him the chance, and especially after a fruitful and productive 2016 spring training where he hit 326 or has up to this point. So for me, Collins, deserves a spot on the Major League roster, and it's because Maben is on the shelf to start the season.
Okay, so he'll be someone that could be platooned in there in the center field spot?
Not in center field per se, but in the corner outfield as a backup. That's the thing. He's really not a center fielder, really can't cover enough ground because he's not speedy enough, not fleet of foot enough. So still doesn't project to be a center fielder, but as a corner outfielder and as a fourth outfielder as a left and right fielder.
Okay, so that'll be a spot and someone that you could think could be someone that could help, solidify that outfield if he's used in the right spots.
Well, yeah, because he was used as a left fielder last year when Cespedes was dealt and was more than fine, was more than apt at playing left field. Okay,
and then the other talk, let's talk a little bit about some positive news and notes. The bullpen has been a little bit inconsistent, but there is some talk about some guys that maybe are going to make the roster. Looks like Blaine Hardy might be pushed aside because of his, little bit of a tough stretch so far.
But he was so good last year. He'll make it because of that. We talked about that kind of last week about the bullpen and how not good it's been. I mean, it's not been effective as a whole, really. Even guys such as Justin Wilson, Mark Lowe haven't been. But you're right, Blaine Hardy has been really bad and even terrible at times so far in spring.
And so that's why guys like Kyle Ryan, right-handers Buck Farmer, and Logan Kensing are making a case that, hey, maybe we can take that spot and be productive. They've had a good spring. They've been talked about, that they've made a case for sticking around and being members of that bullpen.
Well, Kyle Ryan's been really productive, and it seems like he's going to take over that role of Shane Green that Green would have had in the pen as a long reliever if Norris would have made the big league ball club as a fifth arm in the rotation to start the season. Norris on the shelf now with the back issues and whatnot. He won't be the fifth starter, and Shane Green will, as we talked about last week. So Green being the fifth starter, it opens up a spot for a guy such as Kyle Ryan, independent as a long reliever. So Ryan, I believe, will make it because of that, almost by default because of Daniel Norris's injury to start the year. But as soon as Norris is healthy, he's a man to even be the fifth starter, and then Green will be moved to the bullpen and relegated as a long reliever, where he should be realistically, unless he starts off on a great streak of productive starts. If he really gets off to a great start, with that being said, well, maybe he does stay the fifth starter and Norris then becomes the long reliever, or they keep Norris in the minors for a longer period of time to really regain his health and to extremely get on track with being a productive major league starting arm in the future. So maybe they keep him in the minors just to regain everything, regain whatever it may be that maybe he's lacking because, or has been lacking because of the injury, and they get him his reps in the minors, and maybe more of those reps to get him ready for the big leagues at a later point this season. So maybe by May, maybe by June, if Shane Green is productive as that fifth starter. That's what I'm saying. That could be the scenario then where they do settle on Norris being a guy that's pitching in the minors, that's starting in the minors instead of rushing him to the majors as a long reliever out of the pen.
So were you concerned when you heard? I know they tried to temper the fear and worries when they announced Norris's back injury, really complicated, but they said it sounds worse than it is. You concerned a little bit about that? Our friend of the podcast, Justin Rose, said that, and he tied it in pretty good. Can't really be all that great for your back to be sleeping in a van, and then now he's got back injuries. So, hey man, should we maybe take up a collection for Daniel Norris to get a nice Tempur-Pedic? Nice resting thing for that van. Maybe
yeah, you know what?
A nice DSP sponsored logoed bed delivered to his van. We'd be like, hey, we're nice guys here at the podcast. We want to help you out. Want to make sure that you're a guy that's going to be productive. Here's a nice DSP Tempur-Pedic bed with nice big letters.
He can ride that van all day long if he has the DSP logo right on the van. And that would be cool. Fascinating. A great ploy for advertising for the DSP network. But anyways, the van, probably not the most comfortable for his back. I don't know why he's sleeping on that. And I could donate some money. We could all chip in, start a fund for him. But realistically, come on. I mean, he's got how much money now? More money than I do. I'm paying off loan debts, okay? I'm just out of college. I don't got a ton of money to donate to that fund or to help him out. He should be helping himself out by getting a real bed and maybe living in a real place or, being able to commute in a real life scenario for a guy that is a major league arm, going to be that in the future, and quite possibly a major league starting arm for a long period of time. So that means big bucks. He's already got bucks more than us probably combined, at least more than me. I know that in totality. So he should be doing something else and living in the van full time and doing all that.
Also, too, a young 22-year-old or however young he is shouldn't be having that many back problems.
That's something that clears up later, yeah.
So it might be something with mechanics, or he might be doing some off-the-field type, gymnastic aerobics that aren't kosher on the back, if you know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, because he is the van man. He's kind of out there, isn't he? He's very eccentric at times. He might be doing some calisthenics that nobody else does, and nobody else can replicate because he is the van man.
Or if the vans are rocking, don't come a knocking type situation.
He's having some fun in that van maybe, too. Maybe that's hurting his back. Might be the pain, the toll of that on his back, huh?
You worried at all about his back injury? Or, do you think that, okay, a couple chances to relax, rest up, do some rehab, he'll come back stronger than ever? Because this is a proving season for him, being that he's a young starter. He's someone that we kind of, were excited to see after his first start, but tailed off and was a little bit inconsistent at the end of the season. You think he's going to be okay?
Yeah, he tailed off in productivity, you're right, towards the end of last season. But the thing is, he just had come over and starting more and more, and I think he'll benefit from getting some reps in AAA, actually, and rehabbing from this injury. And yeah, it could flare up. For a guy that's that young to have back issues already, you're right. Because usually they flare up later in life, when you're maybe in the latter part of your baseball career, professional sports career, or just later in life, period. For a guy that's not a major leaguer at anything, or in professional sports for anything. So yeah, a little bit of concern because it could be a red flag and one that flares up here and there. And not a good thing for a young guy who's already had some issues in the past, but I still believe in him as a potential frontline arm going forward. And maybe not right away because of this injury, because of this setback, and maybe Shane Green will be that productive number 5, and that might give the Tigers the leeway, the luxury of keeping Norris in the minors for a longer period of time to regain everything, to regain his full effectiveness before he re-enters the majors. And that might be the best thing possible for the Tigers and Daniel Norris going forward, too.
Any other concerns that you have with some lingering injuries? In the paper, it says that Vmart is ready to go. He's going to be there. He's going to be doing his thing, and he's going to hopefully be there for the opening day start, which is rapidly approaching. I can't believe how fast, spring training went. The month of March, boom, boom. They've won quite a bit of games. They're around 500. I think they're, 15-11 in spring training. They've done okay. They've matched the hell out of the ball, but the big question is a lot of injuries in spring training. I was quite surprised by just the sheer number of people that are having injuries, arm injuries, leg injuries. It's a little bit of a concern.
We knew they could hit, and now Upton's finally come alive, huh? That was key and good to see because we need him to come alive to start the season and not to have a slow start, because guys having a slow start will not help out this ball club that does not have maybe an extreme amount of depth. Cannot afford a guy to really struggle out of the gate, especially if, let's bring up an injury concern with Vmart, who's going to be ready for the start of the season, as Brad Ausmus has led us on to believe, and maybe that's true. But how much can we really take from his word? Is it really believable, or is he leading us on down an ugly, improper path, unrighteous path? Because, hey, he kind of lied to us last year saying he was better off playing than he was staying out of the lineup and being put on the DL early in the season when he was struggling, horrible at the plate, couldn't hit from both sides, and now he's a switch hitter. We want him to be the most effective that he can possibly be as a switch hitter. Does that mean we have to sit him maybe a little bit and sit him more consistently as well? What do you think? Because I think the injury will be lingering. I don't think Vmart will be as productive. We've talked about this ad nauseum, right? I've brought it up that I think he's a big-time concern for the Tigers and won't be that impactful middle-of-the-order bat in 2016. And if you know there is something already at his advanced age, sit him periodically to start the season. I think that has to happen by Brad Ausmus. I think he has to implement that and go down that route in order for Vmart to be his most effective towards the end of the season when the Tigers might be in a pennant race.
Yeah,
Doc, what do you think?
Yeah, when the contract was announced, people were excited. Okay, we got it. We got our guy. We got a guy that hits a lot of home runs. That's a proven professional hitter. But the other side, there was a loud, vocal majority that was saying, hey, you could not get the value out of this contract with Vmart because of injuries, because of the fact that after year 2, maybe into year 3 and 4, that his bat speed might decline, that he's not going to be as great, and knowing that he's probably not going to be taking any enhancements or any kind of supplements to, stay at the level that he's at, he's starting to break down. And you've got to realize that he was coming into spring training healthy, but how healthy was he because of those past injuries? When you line up and you look at his, career injuries, a lot of leg problems, a lot of rehab, a lot of time off, and even with the Tigers. And so your body doesn't just recover from that. So these are all lingering type things. And so now with the hamstring, he's probably not going to be healthy, 100% throughout the course of the year. But can he be productive, get those key hits, be that masher, and also be somebody that he's going to need to protect J.D. Martinez and protect the rest of that lineup? He's a key piece. So I do have the same doubts you do, but I'm just hoping that with rehab, resting, and maybe if they listen to you and take
Listen to me. I'm the host of Tiger Saga with Chirco and Company. We're on episode number 34. You got to believe me by now, right?
Rest and relax. Make sure he gets through. And the most important part is the long-term goal. If he has to sit out early parts of the season, that's fine. As long as in late August, early September, and when it's time to go and time to be peaking, this team has to have everything going right. And I guess, it sums it up in what we've talked about quite a bit for the rest of the, in our spring training previews. This is a team that needs to have everything go right. They have to have the starters being well. They have to have the bullpen clicking. The offense has to be producing runs. This isn't a team that can slack in any real department. If they're below average in any of those areas, they're not going to win.
No, they'll be a 70-win ball club.
Yeah, they need to be proficient and functioning at a high level in each department, like most clubs do. But there are some clubs that just through sheer talent and through a sheer overwhelming strength, like KC in that bullpen, all they need to do is get to 6th, 7th inning with a lead, and they were locked. They got a lot of wins that way. Or you have teams that are great hitting teams and a great mix, like the Cubs and the Mets. A lot of young talent. The Mets with the pitching and the Cubs with the young hitters. So the Tigers, though, collectively as a team, every unit has to be clicking, I think, for success to happen. And I have started to really take note and take stock into the projections saying the Tigers are going to finish 4th and last. And I know sometimes some people may say, well, they're only looking at last year. But they're also looking at that this lineup is very valued here in Detroit, but nationally, and people who are objectively looking at it might be a little bit overhyped and overrated.
Well, yeah, because Upton has been a slow starter throughout spring, has been in the past. Last year, not the greatest season for power, didn't hit the greatest for average, not the best OBP of his career. Is he in his decline already? That's a concern for the Tigers. As a big free agent signing he was this past offseason for Al Avila and the Tigers front office. And then Castellanos, will he take the next step forward? Was last year his production in the second half just an aberration, or more of the truth of what we will get out of him going forward in his major league career? Iglesias being healthy consistently, V-Mart being healthy consistently. And for the Tigers, they can't afford to have these serious and long-term injuries, because if they do have these injuries affect them long-term, well, you know what's going to happen to the Tigers? They're going to win 70 games. Maybe not even 70 games, because it's a boom or bust campaign for this Tigers season. It really is, because of the Tigers' makeup as a whole. And that's scary as a fan, because you see the writing on the wall that this team could be really good, but could be really bad as well, and finish in 4th place, finish in 3rd place maybe. That might be the best case scenario, and that's something that I'm going to talk about today, basing it off of the Sports Illustrated MLB preview projections. And I did my own based off of that for the whole entire American League that we will talk about today on the podcast. But I was going to say some guys that have these injury concerns going into the year need to be healthy and early, and also late in the season healthy. But I would say, let me set some timetables for guys for when they have to be healthy by for the Tigers to contend for the AL Central Division crown in 2016. First and foremost, Daniel Norris, let's say, as that big arm for the back end of the pen and big future arm for the rotation. I would say he has to be healthy by mid-May at the latest. Alex Wilson for the pen as that middle innings guy, maybe late inning guy going forward, not in 2016, but in future seasons. I think for this year, he has to be healthy by May. V-Mart has to be healthy now. We give him a longer leash, longer rope, because of the fact that we need him really to be productive at the end of the campaign when they're potentially in a pennant race. So I would say they need him healthy by June. So with those three guys taken into account, you see what I'm talking about. They need them healthier than last year. It's healthier than they have been in spring training as of now. They need them healthier than that and early on, by an early part in the season. So for Wilson, I would say once again by May. For Norris by mid-May. For V-Mart by June. If they don't have those guys healthy by those periods of time in the regular season this year, they're not going to be a competitive ball club that contends for a division crown in the AL Central. And that's a scary thought for a team that's put in a lot of money, invested a lot of time and resources into this ball club to contend and compete for a division crown in 2016.
Okay, so do you think that this pattern of injuries will continue throughout the season? Do you foreshadow a lot of injuries in and out, a lot of players in and out of the lineup? Do you foreshadow that Miguel Cabrera, Victor Martinez, guys in the bullpen like Alex Wilson, do you foreshadow them being able to stay healthy throughout this season? Or are you starting to maybe have your alarms go up, the red flags going, if it's starting now, what leads us to believe that they're going to stay healthy throughout the year?
Well, you know what? I've talked about this before being a red flag. It's really, as an entire ball club, a medical red flag. All these injury concerns going into the season. And with these guys at some of their advanced ages, such as Anibal Sanchez, such as Vmart, I think they will be lingering. I think they will flare up. And that's why this team will more than likely be a middle of the division team. So competing for a third place spot, maybe second place. And that means maybe, just maybe, a second wild card spot, if anything. That might be the best case scenario because of all these injury concerns and medical red flags going into the 2016 regular season, Doc.
Okay, so yeah, I think, sometimes, in a long season, you're going to have to deal with injuries. I guess you could say might as well deal with them right away in spring training, get everybody rested, recuperated, and ready to go. And if they can stay healthy by the time the big money games are in front of us, the better off we'll be. And I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm really, really excited for the season to start. The weather's turned nice. Opening day, Adam and I have talked a lot about some opening day festivities, some of the wild times that we've had. What has been your experience with opening day? What have you done? Were you a guy that had the cervezas downtown, enjoy the festive atmosphere, or were you working? What was your experiences with opening day? Because it's coming for, I think, Friday, April 8th.
Friday, April 8th.
Party
it's rapidly approaching. Almost party time in downtown Detroit.
What are you going to do?
And I won't be around there. I'll be working probably at Top Cat Sales in Royal Oak. Sorry to say that to all you Tigers fans out there. It makes me feel bad.
But said you make the rounds. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. But so, did you ever go downtown, experience opening day?
I've done it with my dad and my brother. My brother, who's a huge White Sox fan, as we talked about. So, but we still made it fun. We had a great time being around the ballpark. We went to the game, and we're big-time baseball fans in the most realistic form. So we wanted to go to the game and be actually in the ballpark watching it, and being attentive is key. Key for all of us as Tigers fans, as baseball fans, my brother being a White Sox fan. But yeah, we wanted to watch it. We did watch the entirety of the game. We went a few years back, I think when I was in high school, so Dominic was in like the latter part of his grade school career, or middle school to sum it up. And that was a while ago. And that was my only time actually going to an opening day Tigers baseball game.
One time, huh?
One time, yep.
I've never been to the game, per se.
But you've been around for the festivities, right?
I've done a lot of opening weekends where the second game or third game, where the attendance is a little bit less, so you get the chance to kind of move around a little bit. But opening day festivities, wow, I was late to that. People had talked to me about it for years, and I was like, working. 1 year, I'm like, forget it. I'm going. I'm going to call off, figure it out, maneuver my schedule, do whatever I got to do. And I went downtown early. It was, I believe, versus the Yankees. And
now, how long ago was this? Because were you calling off to yourself? Did you call your own?
No, I was.
I thought this was before when you were working for somebody.
Yes.
Okay.
So I want to say it was maybe 5 to 7 years ago, and we got down there early, like 8:30, 9 o'clock, and the bar was festive. There were people everywhere, and it was such an exciting environment. It was fun. It was ruckus. It was something that I didn't know how the flow would go. So then the game goes on. You're watching, and then after the game, I was utterly shocked at the party atmosphere that lingered after the game. It was literally like the game built up this momentum, and then after the game, 4 o'clock, it was like the party started, and everyone at that point was having fun, the drinks were flowing, and the dancing went down. I danced, I enjoyed, I drank, had a great time. It was literally a block party, and everyone really came there to have a great time and enjoy the festivities. I'm like, man. I had a lot of fun at Michigan State, but it contained nothing like that status. I didn't like to tailgate a lot. I didn't like to do the big time tailgating with all that kind of stuff.
You mean you didn't get sloshed all the time?
Not all the time. No,
or hammered? Okay.
No, just a couple people off to the side. They're doing it, having fun, and but not in the main center where everyone gathers and all the.
And gets to see you.
Yeah, exactly. So then, this was out of control. I had so much fun. And it was a day I'm never going to forget. And I ended up somewhere. I was either at American or Lafayette. I'm not sure which one.
Do you not remember because you were sloshed that day?
Let's just say.
Did you have a few drinks flowing down your
my
pipe?
brain at that time had a lot of
alcohol in its mind,
yeah,
or in its system.
The blood alcohol ratio probably was not the ratio you needed to be functioning right. So I don't remember which one I went to. I got to ask because I went to one of them, but I have really a low recollection of it. Got home safely, didn't do anything stupid, but I had a good time, and it was fun. It was fun. It was pure fun. I was like, man, from time to time, when you work hard, doing a lot of different things, you got to take time to have some fun. And if you haven't been to an opening day, you got to do it. You got to do it.
It's full of fun. And you know what? It was already big before the Tigers even got good in 2006. It was big back then. And now, well, think about it. They've been good for a while, and it's gotten even bigger. So people, they storm the confines of Comerica, around downtown. They're there for a long day. They get there early. They start drinking early on. So the alcohol starts flowing early on, obviously on opening day. And people get down there. They want to get down there, and they do. And you got to get a spot. You got to have to get down there early to really secure a spot, too, around where, the party's really going on. So it's worth it, well worth it. And when the ball club's good, too, you know what? It even makes it more worth your while. And that's the thing, it's really more about the atmosphere around the ballpark on opening day than the team getting it done on the field at Comerica and winning the game. Because really, at the beginning of the season, it doesn't matter your productivity as a ball club, how many games you win. It's more about, the fans getting acclimated, having their fun, and specifically talking about opening day as we've talked about it. But for the Tigers now, as a whole, as a ball club now in 2016, getting off to a hot start, to an 11-2 start like they did last year, isn't really key to their success going forward. And that's what we talked about it. These injuries can happen, can pile up earlier in this earlier portion of the season, and it's better off that way than later on in the latter part or portion of the season, because they need those players down the stretch to be productive. And that means for the team to be productive as a whole, and then to compete for a division crown and really be in the thick of things, competing for a division crown late in the season. So that's why these injuries, as you said, you perfectly summed it up as a Podfather, you always do, that it's better now to get these injuries out of the way than later, to have them later on in the season flare up. You're right, absolutely right. And I congratulate you for that. Yes. I really do. Commend you for it.
All right, let's take a timeout. Let's regroup, reset, and come back. I'm looking forward to, you did a great tease regarding your projections, where you're going to have everybody slotted. And what are your projections, again, for those that
I'm doing the American League preview. So the American League as a whole, coming up after this commercial break here on Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. Looking for team apparel for your high school, your club sports team, or corporation? Look no further than Top Cat Sales, located on the east side of Main Street in downtown Royal Oak, between 11 and 12 Mile. Through founder and former University of Michigan quarterback John Wangler's leadership, Top Cat Sales has developed a tradition of selling and distributing custom Adidas team apparel with the very highest quality and the very best service. Get your organization, school, or club team all in with Adidas today by going online to TopCatTeamSales.com. Once again, Top Cat Sales website is TopCatTeamSales.com. Also, remember to follow Top Cat Sales on Twitter at Team Top Cat.
Back on the Tigers Talk podcast. Loving talking baseball with our guy, Vito Jerome Chirco, host of the Tigers Talk podcast, journalist extraordinaire, good guy all around. Now has been featured on the Facebook Live application there, so it was good. People are watching. I enjoy it. Now, before we get into your preview, we'll get to that really quickly. I know you're excited to tell us and the podcast listening audience what you think is going to happen in the American League. You just did a spot for Team Top Cat. Are you a model employee? If you got graded, would you say that you're handling everything okay? You're a good A+ employee?
Give me a B level.
B?
Well, I'm being doubtful of my own well-being, my own worth, and what I've done. I'm always critical of myself and my productivity. So I would give myself a B level for my quality of work on a consistent basis. Now, I'm usually an A. Yeah. So I would say give me a B+. Give me
Why?
A B+ because I don't want to over-tout myself. So I would say B+. Because I don't want to be too excitable about talking about, how great I've been and all that kind of crap. I know I've been great at times. I know I can be great. I'm Vito Jerome Chirco, the host of this Tigers Talk podcast, for a reason here. But to sum it up succinctly, it really is that, I'm not great. We're not perfect all the time. I'm not the Podfather. I'm not perfect like you all the time, doing all this inside your office here in Sterling Heights, psychology, and then also doing the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, podcast after podcast. I can't do what you do.
Okay, so now what we can do is maybe we can set you up with an internship with me, because here's how I introduce myself to my segment on the Doc and Jock podcast.
But to be the man, you gotta beat the man, and I'm saying, woo, right here. I'm the man. Woo!
See, I think the problem is a lot of people want to be humble. And
I'm
it's a
trying to
nice
be humble.
Yes, you're
Yes.
trying to be humble. It's a good quality. But you also have to unleash your talent. You're a talented dude, and I think that I'll give you an A+. Because I know you're
Thank
working.
you.
You're
I love
working
the
hard.
A+.
Yes, you're working hard, and you're a good dude. And sometimes we need to, pump each other up, and not because people view it as being conceited and things like that. You're not conceited. That's the farthest thing from it. But you have to have that profile, that that swagger, and that's what lets you do these type of things. And you do have swagger because you basically got yourself onto this podcast platform. You did it yourself. You just said, hey, I want to do it, and you've dedicated yourself. So you got a lot going for you. So I'm not going to let you just say, oh, I just go there and whatever. You've done a lot there. So bring it on, baby.
Well, I'm grateful for the platform that you've given to me, and I did take the initiative to get this platform started off for myself.
Now,
I did.
If somehow I design a robe with a boa, sparkles with like VITO, sparkling, would you wear like a Ric Flair robe, parade it around, just walk around as Vito Chirco?
Unleash the inner beast that is Vito Jerome Chirco.
Yes.
I would do it for the flair, for the dramatic. I have the flair for the dramatic here and there.
Good.
I'm not going to always show it off or be, totally, I guess, to that side.
I think we got to see it. We got to get, I might create something. Just get a robe, flare it up, put your name on the back, and just have you walk around. Oh, man. Okay, we'll see. I got myself a little project here. Those robes are expensive, but I want to get one.
Yeah, living to that wild side, though, is not what I always do. Now, I've done it before. I've had my fun and all that, and that's more than fun. It's just unleashing your inner beast and being confident, maybe a little bit too confident. And I'll say this, which Johnny Unitas once said, conceit is bragging. That's why I don't like to brag. I like to be more humble. And I believe in myself. I'm self-confident. I am confident in my abilities, but I don't want to tout them all the time. That's just how I've always been, how I've been taught. And yeah, really playing off of what Johnny Unitas said. I believe that the conceit, as he said, is bragging. And then confidence is just believing that you will get the job done. In so many words, he said it maybe more succinctly and whatnot, and said it in different words. So I'm not taking it verbatim from his quote, great quote that he once said. But still, that's what I believe in as well. Just not totally touting myself up all the time, but still being a guy that believes in himself. And I am that. I am self-confident, and I believe that I've done enough to get this platform, and that I've proved myself that I have been deserving of this platform too, and I appreciate you giving this to me, as I've said before. We'll never forget that you gave me this opportunity, Doc.
All right, yes, sir. Let's see. Break it down for me. What do you got? Tell me what you're thinking regarding the American League, how you broke this down, how this came to be.
Well, I'm not going to be able to sum this up concisely like you. You're so perfect, right? A+ material all the time. And I appreciate that A+ grade that you gave to me once again. And a lot of these American League ball clubs would love to have an A+ grade because they're not going to receive an A+ grade from me today. But I went division by division in the American League ranking these ball clubs. And I found out in the AL Central, I like a ball club that I thought I wouldn't like atop the division initially when looking into all these teams for the 2016 regular season. And that team is the defending champion, KC Royals. I like them in first place once again, finishing ahead of the Indians, meaning the Tigers, as I see it right now, will not make the playoffs. Now, I put out that Twitter poll about, do you think I will have the Tigers in my American League projections, playoff projections for the 2016 campaign? A lot of people thought I would be biased, not objective, but I'm being objective today here, people. Putting the Tigers in third place because of their boom or bust potential. So for me, they have the potential still to contend for a wild card spot, for that second wild card spot specifically. But being a playoff team right off the bat without making another move or two to upgrade maybe the bullpen or the back end of the rotation, without that being taken into account or having been done as of right now at the start of this season, I can't say the Tigers are a playoff team without that kind of stuff, those kind of moves being done, which they might take place by or at the trade deadline, the non-waiver July 31st MLB trade deadline. They might happen then for the Tigers and might catapult them and put them over the top of the Indians and Royals at the top of the American League Central Division. But right now where I see the Tigers placed is third place. And I see the White Sox and the Twins finishing out the division. So the White Sox finishing in fourth place, maybe taking even a step back. And they were bad last year, won 77 games, I believe. And then in fifth place, the Twins taking a major step back just because I see the strength in this division and the parity in the American League as a whole pushing the Twins back into fifth place in the AL Central for the 2016 campaign. So 1 through 5, how I have it right now shaped up to be is the Royals at the top, followed by the Indians, the Tigers, the White Sox, and then the Twins at the very bottom of the division. Doc, do you like my 1 through 5 in the AL Central, where I have the Royals at the top and the Twins at the very bottom in the cellar?
You know what, Vito? I agree 100%.
Well, you got to agree. I love you. You always agree. You got anything else? No, I'm joking.
No, I do agree. I think that you said it succinctly. I believe that the Tigers have a chance to be atop of that division if two things happen. One, they stay healthy. If everybody's clicking and they're playing well, if everybody's injured, if everybody stays out of the, disabled list, we have a chance. And two, if the starters can go deeper into games and have a lower ERA and are able to kind of have the ability to hold leads, because I do think the offense is going to pick up. If the starters can keep pace with the offense and allow the offense to take shape and get us some 4 to 5 runs, if the team ERA can be between 2.5 and 3, we got a good chance. You'll check for me probably in a few minutes while you're doing the other stuff, but check last year's team ERA. And we'll see what it was.
It was 4.38 in the bullpen for the Tigers. Way too high. That'll be lower. We talked about that last week.
The starters.
Still, I think 4 something.
Yeah.
Way too high once again. Has to be better.
So, yeah, I'm saying then it has to be between 2.5 and 3.5. You have to lower it by at least a run because they were giving up, like I said, they gave up way more runs than they scored last year. It has to be better. If that happens, then you can see the Tigers atop. But is it likely to happen? I just don't see it. Right now, my confidence is swaying toward KC repeating again.
Well, their Pythagorean record was actually worse than what the Tigers finished with at 74 and 87 last year. So they should have been worse because of the fact that, as you said, Doc, you perfectly once again said it. You said that, they actually allowed more runs than they scored. That's why they were so bad. And the rotation cannot be that poor once again. The bullpen cannot be that poor once again. They have to both be better, and the rotation arms, like you said, have to go deeper into games to allow the bullpen arms and to settle into their roles at the back end of games. They get comfortable in those roles at the back end of games. But anyways, as of right now, because of their boom or bust potential, without there being a move made for the back end of the rotation, I think the Tigers will be a third-place ball club that will be competitive, will win 80, 82, 83 games, but will not make the playoffs. And even as a wild card in 2016, without a move being made. A move or two has to be made for that to happen. And a move could easily be made towards the trade deadline on July 31st. And that's when they could upgrade the rotation, which I think they have to do, Doc. And maybe even the bottom of their lineup, maybe even the middle innings of their bullpen have to be upgraded. And they'll find that out as the season progresses, as they get closer and closer to that MLB July 31st non-waiver trade deadline. And now moving on from the Central, where I have the Royals winning, to the American League East. We're in first place, Doc. I have the Blue Jays winning once again. They were great, making it back to the playoffs for the first time, I believe, since my birth year of 93. And they could hit it. They will be able to match once again like they did. In the middle of that order, and really from top to bottom, to a large degree, they can match, and we'll show that off again this year. But it's more about now the concern for them going into 2016 is the top of the rotation. Who is their ace? Is Marcus Stroman a bona fide ace after Price was at last year after they dealt for him at the trade deadline from the Tigers? They don't have Price anymore. He's not coming through those doors, coming into the Rogers Center to pitch every fifth day any longer. Now it's Marcus Stroman's rotation as a young guy, undersized guy that has good command, good velocity, has that number one top of the rotation material with his stuff in his arsenal. But can he be that now every fifth day with all the expectations of carrying a ball club that is going to be a top of the division team in 2016? Because last year the Jays, in comparison, didn't have those projections, those high expectations, because coming into the year, they weren't going to be this great first-place ball club like they finished out to be in 2015. They didn't know that. They didn't have to face those expectations. Now, people expect this going into 2016, and Sports Illustrated does as well, and many other projections do from websites and magazines with their MLB preview issues. So the Jays face more expectations, more pressure subsequently. And now Stroman has to face all of that, deal with all that at the top of the Jays rotation. Can he handle all those expectations? That's the key now for the Jays, whether or not he can do that in 2016 for the bulk of the season. And then they have some other guys as you go down in that rotation that can be reliable, but will they be truly reliable? So some question marks with that rotation, to say the least. And the back end of the pen now, I like what they have there. Drew Storen after Roberto Osuna. Now, he was their closer last year, a great closer for the Jays. Really was. And now, the question is, can he be that closer again? Came out of nowhere last year, was great. And they added Storen there to help out with that. Storen seems, as of right now, is projected to be the closer for the Jays. Will be that guy to start the season at least. So if they have that at the back end of their pen, and for the large portion of the year, if those guys stay healthy, that's a great back end in the 8th inning with Osuna, who was the closer last year, like I said, and then with Storen in the 9th. So can't really beat that. So for me to sum it up, it's about the rotation. How steady, how consistent will it be 1 through 5 in 2016? If it's better than average, they will be a playoff team once again, the Jays, and probably will win the division in the American League East. And then after that, I have the Red Sox finishing second after all the moves made by Dave Dombrowski, going really from an analytical mindset last year with the Bo Sox to a more old school mentality, adding Craig Kimbrell, trading a lot of prospects to get him to close out games for the Red Sox now. And then adding Price for a big amount of money. Now, had the great WAR himself, and he's a great pitcher even when you look into the analytics of things and really dive deep into the numbers, into the sabermetrics and whatnot. Price is that legit and that bona fide ace that he was for the Jays and that the Jays might be lacking. And that's the reason why the Red Sox maybe could catapult the Jays. And because they have the hitting, too. The guys in the middle of the order who are impactful bats. When you take into account that they have Big Papi Ortiz, Hanley Ramirez, even Pablo Sandoval may be bouncing back, who I don't totally trust in, though, going into 2016 because he looks like a beanball. He's out of shape. So I don't trust him totally in the middle of the Red Sox order or even as a reliable defensive guy at third base. But still, they should be productive enough in that lineup and good enough and much better, actually, in that rotation than they were last year, to the point where they will contend at least for a wild card spot in 2016 and be a second-place team in the American League East. So,
okay, who gets
Jays and Red Sox 1 and 2, and then I didn't get the chance to go 3 through 5 because I've been going so long here with the 1 and 2.
But I real fast,
yes,
quick reaction. Who gets to the ALCS first, Red Sox or Tigers?
Red Sox easily. They're better right now because they have a bona fide ace, better ace than Justin Verlander for the Tigers, with David Price now being at the top of the rotation. And their bullpen is better. They have Uehara. They have Craig Kimbrell closing out games. Their bullpen is much better than the Tigers.
DD has the checkbook that he can just go, okay, I can trade off anybody I want. I can sign whoever I want. He has the ability to really do, I'm sure the checkbook was nice here in Detroit.
It was what we saw,
Boston,
what the payroll got to.
The Red Sox is totally different. It's like, do what you got to do, man. And you win a title there, he'll have a job for life probably.
He can keep spending freely, and that's the key to success in Beantown, along with their farm system, which is better than the Tigers as well. And that's why the Red Sox should be better in 2016 than the Tigers will be playing in the AL Central.
So in the East, who's in the dweller? Who sucks?
Well, I was going to say really quickly about the Bo Sox. With that farm system being taken into account, they have guys coming up now to that big league ball club for 2016 that will be productive bats, and that they will be counting on to be productive bats, such as Mookie Betts in the outfield. So a guy like that could be a top of the order guy and very productive at getting on base and also at hitting for power.
Yeah.
But now to answer,
and I'm curious. I'm curious to see where you have Baltimore, because their manager has come out, Buck Showalter, and he said, "Hey, I like where we're at. I like the fact that we're being disrespected. If you just look in the last 4 years," he said, "who's won the most games in the AL East? That would be
been the O's,
the Baltimore Orioles."
Surprisingly,
goes,
for a lot of people,
we're not getting that respect, so I'm going to come take it. I like where we're at, and he's kind of championing for them. So I'm interested to see who you got in the basement of the AL East.
The O's, that team that you talked about that's won the most games since I don't know when, the last 3, 4, 5 years, at least 3 or 4 years. It's been the O's, and I have them in third place this year. Probably finishing out with 80 to 82, 83 wins. If they get lucky, and getting lucky for them would be getting frontline productivity out of Chris Tillman at the top of the rotation and good production out of Giovanni Gallardo in that number 2 spot, which he was really great at with Texas last year. So third place, the Orioles under Buck Showalter. Great tutelage under him and great leadership from Showalter. In fourth place, I have the Rays, and in fifth place, I actually have the Yankees right now. Oh. Yes, and dead last, the Yanks, who are not spending the big money like they used to. They spent the least amount of money in the offseason, surprisingly.
Oh, no!
And they used to be the big spenders, with George Steinbrenner leading the way, and now his sons are leading the way as owners running that ball club there in the Bronx. So
why? Money tight, or they just
money is not tight. I can't believe that, because hey, they are in the biggest market, right? The media capital of the world in New York. So
spending more wisely because they haven't gotten some returns on those investments.
Spending more wisely because they have big contracts still on the books too, in A-Rod and Mark Teixeira, and those guys might be slowing down in 2016, and that's why, along with a weakened top of the rotation, it's why I have the Yankees finishing in last place behind a ball club in the Rays who have a much deeper rotation, 1 through 4 at least, with guys such as Matt Moore, Chris Archer. He's a phenom now. He's that ace there. And can't forget about our man, left-hander Drew Smyly, who came over in that David Price trade when we got Price here in Motown. He went there. Smiley's been good ever since, outside of getting hurt and dealing with that a little bit. So that's who I have
East.
In the East 1 through 5.
Okay, so you've done the AL Central, you've done the AL East. What's next?
The American League West.
Let's see.
Last but not least, because they have, I believe, the best team in the American League in the Astros. They are who I have finishing atop the American League West. And look at what they've added. Doug Fister, their bullpen's still good, not hard-throwing guys, but Gregerson, guys like that who are more soft tossers, but good enough to get the job done at the back end of the pen. And then they have McCullers. They have guys like that. Dallas Keuchel, he is the ace of that rotation. So they have a good mix of young talent there in the rotation and good enough arms in the pen, along with a young lineup to get it done, enough to be the best ball club in the American League, in my opinion, in 2016. And they will be followed by the Rangers, I believe. And then after the Rangers, I have the Seattle M's, and after that, the Halos, and then the A's. So I have the A's finishing in last place, which my brother said is not going to happen because he is doubting the Halos extremely. Remember, he came on, went on his tangent about how bad the Halos will be in 2016, and that's why he had them finishing actually behind the A's and in last place in the AL West. I don't see the Halos their stock falling that much where they end up in last place. So I think they avoid that, finish in fourth place, so, and out of the playoffs, with that being said still. And the M's could be good enough to finish maybe in playoff contention and with that second wild card playoff spot. And the Rangers, I see being that team that could do that as well. But for me right now, Astros best team in the American League West and in the American League as a whole. And the Rangers really aren't that close, but could be a playoff team as one of the two wild card teams in the AL in 2016. But I see them, by the way, missing out on the American League wild card, on those two wild card playoff spots in the AL because of the strength of the Bo Sox, who are going to be a very good second place team in the AL East, and the Indians, who I see as being better in 2016 than the Rangers as well. So the Indians finishing ahead of the Rangers for that second wild card spot, and also finishing ahead of the Tigers for that second wild card spot. Because you have the Tigers being there, close enough to getting that second wild card playoff spot in the AL, but missing out by a hair or two behind the Indians and the Rangers as well. Like I said, finishing a hair or two behind the Indians for that second and last wild card spot in the AL.
Okay, that's a thorough breakdown. Who are the teams that you're liking to represent the American League in the championship series? Who do you think, just on the eye test, based on your projections? And I know the matchups are, sometimes difficult way down the line, but just on paper, based on what your research, who do you like to duke it out to get that pennant?
Right now, I have the Stros and the Blue Jays, and the Stros beating the Jays in the ALCS.
The Stros.
Stros are the best team. That's what I believe. Sports Illustrated believes it as well. And I'm not just taking from their due diligence and ranking all these teams and their analysis of the Stros and others, and myself also saying that the Stros are the best team in the AL. I really do think this is their year to shine, and they will get over the top and make it all the way to the Fall Classic in 2016. So I have them finishing ahead of them, getting past the Jays to make it into the Fall Classic this year. And before that happens, here's what I have happening first and foremost in the one-game playoff. And in that one-game playoff, I see the Bo Sox prevailing over the Indians with David Price on the mound and Corey Kluber on the mound for the Indians. So the Indians then traveling to Fenway, and the Bo Sox getting it done at Fenway with David Price on the mound. That's the reason why they signed him, right? To get it done in those big-time, crucial games in the regular season, but also in the playoffs, such as in that potential one-game playoff for the Bo Sox, which, if it plays out to be the way that I see it happening, would have Terry Francona, the former manager, World Series winning manager of the Bo Sox, traveling into Fenway to play in that one-game playoff. That would be something. Great for the ratings for Major League Baseball. And after that, I have in the ALDS, the Astros prevailing against the Red Sox as that one seed, and then the Jays over the Royals. The Royals will not get back to the ALCS or to the Fall Classic in 2016. I don't think that's too bold of a prediction because it's very hard to even make it 2 years in a row, let alone 3 years in a row, to the Fall Classic. And that's why I see the Royals falling behind a little bit in the race for the best team in the AL. And you know what? Like I said, that's a major reason why I see them tripping up. Because really, are they that far behind the likes of, well, first and foremost, the Astros? Are they really that far behind the Astros? No, they're not. But getting to the Fall Classic 3 straight years, almost impossible. And that's why I see them tripping up a round or two rounds before, for me and my projections, 2 rounds before the Fall Classic this year. Because, like I said, I see the Jays getting past the Royals to play the Astros in the ALCS, where the Astros will prevail to play that best team in the NL, who I don't have projected yet, but I will predict that on next week's episode of Tiger Talk with Chirco and Company, which will be episode number 35 of the podcast. And Doc, really quick before we end today's discussion on the pod, I wanted to ask you, who do you like in the American League West?
No, I think that, the Angels have some talent. I like what the Rangers are doing, but exactly what you said. You saw last year what the Astros could do, and imagine if they would have had J.D. Martinez, if they didn't let him go. They would have just mashed. And I believe I won a playoff bet with you because of a prediction with you. Did I predict?
You predicted the Royals, right, to go further than I did. I predicted the Jays. You got the Royals, and the Royals, hey, won it all. So I guess I got to pay up, huh?
Okay. So
I got to make a payment to the Podfather.
No, you're good. I think you paid up.
Well, didn't we do a...
Yeah.
Come on, we did an iced cappuccino bet, and now you're bringing this up like you want something more out of me? What do you expect out of me, man?
I just want, like you said, see, I have to just remind myself because, I watch baseball, but it's not my number one. But I do know a little bit about it.
You better know something. You're on this podcast as my co-host, dude. Come on now.
That's right. I give myself a little credit for that. But, in terms of the AL West, I like Houston. I think they've got what it takes. I like that offense. I like what they can do. I think that with growth and maturity, they're going to have an opportunity to make some noise. But in the end, Texas has been there. They've done some damage. And again, the Angels always seem to find their way into the mix from time to time. But it's going to be I think the AL West might be the most competitive along with the East. I think our division...
The East is weak. I think it is. I mean, besides the top two teams.
All together collectively. But I still think they battle each other out. And that division might surprise you this year. The AL East might be more competitive.
How about
than
the
you're giving
Central?
credit.
How about some love for the Central, though? You have the Tigers there in third place, being a good third place team. Indians contending for a wild card spot. I think getting that second wild card spot. And the Royals being the defending champions.
With the AL
top
Central,
three there? Come on, man.
The way I look at it is one or two Kings and the rest paupers. I think that everyone else is going to be trying to, do their best to hang in there. But this AL Central could probably be one of the most lopsided. If I make a bold prediction, I could say KC could win the division by 10 games. Or whoever wins it, if it's going to be the Tigers, I don't think it's going to be competitive. If the Tigers get out there, they're going to go. It's not going to be as competitive as it has been the last 2 years. That would be my bold prediction.
I think if the Tigers win the division, they barely win it. They win it by 2.5 games at the most, something like that. Maybe 3.5 games at the most. So that would take a lot still for the Tigers to do. But making the playoffs won't take a ton, and especially if they make a move at the trade deadline. And that's why I say I prefix, all this by saying, well, the Tigers, if they made that move or two, they probably could catapult the Indians for that wild card spot from one of the two in the AL. And maybe even for the division crown, taking it from the Royals if they made the right moves at the trade deadline to upgrade a spot in the rotation or something such as that on their roster.
Okay, to recap, who are the three division winners?
Let me give you those really quick. So I've got in the Central, the Royals. In the East, the Blue Jays, who I love. You know that from last year. In the West, the Astros being the best team as well in the American League in 2016. And on the two wildcard teams, I have the Bo Sox finishing in second in the East, getting that first wildcard spot. And then the Indians getting the second wildcard spot and finishing second in the AL Central.
Make sure you jot those down. We'll see how you do at the end of the season. I'm so looking forward to it. I think then the next podcast, the Tiger season would have started.
It will have started, and then the opening day will be the so
when's the season start?
Next week, the opening day will take place for the Tigers because it's Friday, April 8th for the Tigers. Opening day
next Friday
at Comerica.
Next Friday.
So when we do our podcast next Friday or next it'll drop next Wednesday. When we do our next week's podcast,
they will have started the season.
They will have started the season
on the road,
and then the opening day for the Tigers at home will be coming up.
So Vito, when do the Tigers open the season?
So they will start on the road at the Marlins. They have that 2-game series with the Marlins, and it's weird how they start off in interleague. I don't like how that is set up, by the way. But yeah, Tuesday, April 5th, and Wednesday, April 6th, they play. So at the releasing of next week's episode of the podcast, episode 35, the Tigers will already have played. Well, they'll already have played the one game, their first game of the season. And then the second game will be played at 4:55 on April 6th. So really the later in the afternoon of our releasing of next week's episode of the pod. And then they open up next week after the podcast on Friday at Comerica Park against the Bronx Bombers, the New York Yankees, for a 3-game set over the weekend, taking place from Friday until Sunday, April 10th, that is. And with that, you know what? We'll have a lot of conversation throughout the season. Looking forward to it and to opening night. Opening night is Sunday night, by the way. And guess who's battling on opening night, on Sunday Night Baseball?
The Mets and the Royals.
A repeat of the World Series from 2015. Should be fun, should be exciting, and a lot to talk about on next week's episode of the podcast, episode 35 of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Co. Doc will be back then to talk much more baseball and regular season now. Finally, regular season, Major League Baseball news and notes. Talk to you then.
See ya.